You have to create these little moments where the woman is caught off guard. She doesn't know where you're taking them, what the next step is. It's the classic coquette strategy where you're kind of going hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold. When you're cold, they're like, oh my God, what's wrong? Did I do something wrong? It's a trap for a man in seducing to always try and be so nice, because sometimes a woman doesn't want somebody who's so nice, because that signals weakness. What makes for a great seducer is very simple. I can summarize it very simply. You are outer directed. So when you meet somebody for the first time, or you're on a date or whatever it is, you're not having that internal monologue going, does she like me or does he like me? Am I dressed well? Am I saying stupid things? What can I do to impress them? No, you turn it off and you're outer directed and you're listening to them. And you're entering their spirit, and you're hearing them say things that give you idea of what they're missing in life, of what they want, of what their needs are, of what makes them an individual. You're absorbing it, you're entering into their spirit, and then you can reflect it back to them. You can give them gifts, you can take them to places that show that you're attentive to them. Because if you look at how we are in our day-to-day life, normally people never pay us attention. They're always so self-absorbed, they're never thinking about us. The times where you get the sense that people are actually interested in who you are as an individual is pretty rare. If you give that feeling to someone, it's incredibly powerful, because we all want to be validated, we all want to be recognized. So the seducer is not someone who's all worried about him or herself and thinking. They're involved in the other person. They're absorbed like a sponge inside their psychology, inside their world. Anti-seducer has many qualities. One quality that's very anti-seductive is preaching and moralizing. Is like telling people, oh, that's wrong what you just said, or your politics are ugly, or you're not really good at this, or something or other. Having a moral superiority, a sense of sanctimony in a realm which should be about pleasure, where should be that kind of equality, that kind of back and forth dynamic, where you're asserting your moral superiority, is deeply, deeply anti-seductive, the element of preaching to people. Not being generous, and I mean not just with money is important, but not being generous with your spirit, right? You want to be open, you want to give as much as you can to the other person, of yourself, of your time, of your money, of your energy, etc. So being all kind of crimped and I don't want to give, I don't want to spend money, I want to take you to the cheap place to eat, I don't want to give you much time, is very, very anti-seductive. The falling in love process generally takes time, right? I mean, we do have love at first sight, and it is a real phenomenon, and I've had it myself.
Really?
Yeah. But the idea, so there's a famous French writer named Stendhal who wrote a great book called On Love, one of the greatest books written about love. It was in the early 19th century. And he compared to falling in love to what he called crystallization. And it's based on this thing where you would throw a piece of wood into this mine in Germany somewhere at Salzburg, and then you would pull it out like a week later and it would be filled with all of these brilliant crystals. And he compared that to the process of falling in love. The person is just who they are. They're like a trunk of a tree. But your mind kind of puts all these qualities on them, crystallizes them into some kind of ideal figure, right? And so that mental process takes time, right? It requires also some distance and some fantasizing, sort of basic elements of human psychology. If you're having sex right away, it's too close, it's too intimate, it's too early to be able to go through that process, right? And often, there's usually a letdown after that initial sexual encounter if you have it too early, right? Whereas opposed to letting time go by and letting the other person begin to think about you and fantasize about you, and in their mind sort of imagine some interesting qualities about you and fascinate them, which is what he calls this crystallization process. I mean, literally think of it that way, that you're in their mind, they're kind of forming this sort of ideal crystal image of you, right? And it takes time, and it takes some absence. It takes the ability to say, you know, you're not in their face all the time. You disappear for a couple days, a couple weeks or whatever, not weeks, but a few days. You let them think about you, and you let that kind of spell, because seduction and love is kind of a spell that you're casting, right? And there's an art to it. And so the mistake people have is they're in too much of a hurry to have like a really, you know, intimate relationship or to get married or whatever it is. In general, in our culture, people are in too much of a hurry. They're too much of a hurry to make money, too much in a hurry to get attention. That also involves, you know, in romantic relationships.
Right.
I maintain that the process of seducing is making the other person fall in love. Well, even in love at first sight, which I say I've kind of maybe experienced, it doesn't necessarily lead to something, right? You still have to go through a process where the other person's character, that you start idealizing and romanticizing and thinking about them. You know, even that immediate attraction, there is still the seduction process that has to go on.
Sure.
Right? And so, you know, I try in the Art of Seduction, I make the point that political seduction, marketing seduction, social seductions, because in your office you're continually seducing, it's the same process. And it's getting the other person to think about you and getting them to fall in love with your product, with your idea, with your political platform or whatever it is. And that process of internalizing that other person, of having their presence, their spirit or whatever, inside you, inhabit you, and you're thinking about them a lot, is a process of falling in love, right? So it doesn't mean that there aren't seductions where you're seducing the other person and then it's over after a month, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to lead to a relationship. But I separate seduction from just having sex.
Yes.
So if you go to a bar and you pick up a woman in the bar and that night you go back to your place and you have sex, that's not seduction, right? Because we are psychological creatures, right? We're not animals. And the process of actually having our emotions engaged by the other person takes a lot deeper process, right? It can't happen quickly, it can't happen overnight. So seduction isn't like, you know, pickup artists don't really like the art of seduction so much because it's not quick enough for them. I'm telling you have to go through these steps. I don't want to have to go through all these steps. I don't have to wait 3 weeks to sleep with her or a month. I don't have to surprise her and give her gifts, or I'm talking about from the male point of view.
Sure.
Do all of these things that Robert talks about. You know, I want it quick, you know. Some of them aren't like that, but some of them are. And so there are plenty of books written out there about how to pick up women or guys in a bar, but the seduction isn't about that. It's something else. It's something more elemental. And I talk in the Art of Seduction about how it goes back to our childhood, how we are incredibly vulnerable to the emotions of other people. It begins with our parents, right? And the sense of, you know, we internalize their presence, we're thinking about them, we have this kind of very deep emotional attachment to them. We're seduced by our parents in some ways. It kind of sets a tone from early childhood, this need to feel vulnerable to other people, right? That's the thing as well is, you know, it's a lot of people mistake seduction, and that's the reason I wrote the book. They have really bad ideas about it. They have an idea that it's this kind of cold process. Typically, it'll be a male seducer, but it can be a woman, and they're really conniving, and they're coming up with all kinds of tricks to get the woman or man to like fall for them, and either they're after money or sex or something else, right? And actually, seduction is a matter of vulnerability. It's making yourself vulnerable to the other person. If I can define seduction in simple terms, most of the time we are closed to the influence of other people, particularly now. We have these walls up because life is harsh. People are coming at us with their advertisements, with their pleas, with their wanting money, with this, that, and the other. And we've all learned to be very defensive, right? And seduction is an openness, is the opposite of that. And you felt it when you were a child towards your parents. You felt very vulnerable and open. And there was an element of your parents and how they treated you that was very much like a seduction, right? So seduction is about being open to the other person to the extent where you can even fall in love. You can fall under their spell. And the sense of letting go of your ego, letting go of your defensiveness, and letting another person enter your world is being seduced. It requires vulnerability. If you meet, the typical scenario is of a man who's not vulnerable at all. He's so powerful and in control and everything, has no vulnerabilities. It's frightening. For a woman, it could be very frightening. Like this, he's so strong, he's so invulnerable that there's something wrong about it. Maybe he's a serial killer. Maybe he's got skeletons in his closet. Something isn't right about that. What seduces you about a puppy, about a child, about an animal, is their vulnerability. It makes you want to hug them. It makes you want to help them, right? The sense which if you came upon a tiger that's there and they don't need that, well, that's not seductive. I mean, on your screen it is, but if they're there in your living room, that's not seductive. But that puppy is, right? Vulnerability, the sense that somebody needs protection or help, brings out qualities in us that we don't normally have that I think allow for seduction. So that is being vulnerable. That is, I can be influenced by that other person. I am open to their spirit, right? That's being vulnerable. The word vulnerable comes from the root of it means a wound, vulnus. So you have a wound inside of you and you need healing. And the other person naturally wants to help you, right? But being insecure is the opposite. Means I'm so self-absorbed, I'm so worried about myself that I can't get out of it. And we've all had that experience. When you meet somebody and you can sense, you can smell their insecurity in them. I'm not judging them because we all have insecurities. It makes you feel insecure. It makes you feel a little bit awkward. Whereas if you meet someone who's not like that, who's confident, etc., it brings out that quality in you. So if you're on a date and there's someone you smell that kind of insecurity, it makes you awkward and insecure. It creates a kind of a problem. A seduction is you're taking somebody out of that world and you're taking them into something different, heightened, more dramatic, more interesting, more theatrical. Okay? So that means you're creating surprises. And so when I'm telling men how to seduce, I say that you have to kind of create these little moments where the woman is caught off guard. She doesn't know where you're taking them, what the next step is. There could be sometimes slightly negative things where it might be, that wasn't good. And then you immediately catch it up with something good, kind of a roller coaster ride, very calculated. So, I mean, it's the classic coquette strategy where you're kind of going hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold. Mm-hmm. Maybe the hot is 70% and the cold is 30%. But when you're cold, they're like, oh my God, what's wrong? Did I do something wrong? Because the first thing that you do is, what did I do that was wrong that made them kind of withdraw from me? Then the next moment they're smiling, they're taking you somewhere else. Oh, relief. Oh, wow, yeah. Okay, it's okay now. That's how you get involved on that kind of emotional roller coaster, and they kind of hook you that way. Because the whole game, besides getting the other person to think about you when you're not there, is to get them emotional about you. Even if they dislike you, that's okay, because that can be overcome. What you cannot overcome is indifference. So getting them to be upset, which is the whole thing about that wound, getting them to be suspicious, angry, that gives you room to turn around to seduce them because they're emotional. They're getting emotional in your presence. That emotion in your presence can now be turned into something else. So that people may not be totally aware that they're doing that, but there's a part of them in the back of their minds that know that they are kind of creating this hot and cold game. They're creating a push and pull. So it's never completely natural or unconscious. There's an element where they kind of know that this is a very effective thing to use on the other person. It's a trap for a man in seducing to always try and be so nice. Because sometimes a woman doesn't want somebody who's so nice, because that kind of signals weakness.